Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I am excited to bring you today's webinar, Security and Data Mining, Safeguarding Content in the Digital Age. My name is Amanda Law. I am the Marketing Event Manager at Cadmium, and it is my pleasure to be your MC today. We're thrilled to have you with us, and we will explore a very timely and critical topic, how to navigate evolving digital threats, leveraging AI responsibly, and implementing smart strategies to protect and optimize content in an increasingly data-driven world. I'm honored to introduce today's speaker, Ezra Wolf. Ezra is the Senior Vice President of Infrastructure and IT here at Cadmium. He's a pioneering healthcare leader in healthcare learning and a strong track record of innovation, including co-founding one of Cadmium's LMS solutions, Ethos CE, and driving advancements in technical education solutions. We're very happy to have him with us, and if you'll just join me in giving Ezra a warm welcome, I'll kick it over to you, Ezra. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Hopefully y'all can see my slides. I'm going to go ahead and get started. As Amanda said, I'm going to be talking about safeguarding content in the digital age and specifically focusing on navigating AI disruption for knowledge-based organizations. So we'll get into that and what that means in a second. Here's the agenda today. It will be a little bit technical, but not a technical per se talk, but we're going to be talking about technical concepts. If you're not technical, that's fine. These are ideas and concepts that you can learn from me, hopefully, and take these back to your team and talk about how you might want to implement them. So as Amanda said, I'm the SVP of Infrastructure and IT at Cadmium. That means I'm responsible for the security compliance here and setting technology strategy around those. I have about 20 years of experience in product management, web applications, and security, co-founder of Ethos CE, and currently focusing on internal and external AI here at Cadmium. And all that goes to say I'm really focused and passionate on the customer experience, and whether that's the back end and infrastructure, security, or AI, that's really what drives me here. So to set the context for what I'm talking about, I want to talk about this shifting paradigm that I noticed maybe 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, which is how we interact with the web, or how I interact with the web and how many other people do, and probably many soon will as well, which is how you find information. So used to be a year ago, I would go to Google. I would use all my Google Kung Fu knowledge to put in the right keywords to find the right information. And then I would start clicking through and visiting all the websites that it returned. But I don't do that anymore. In fact, I rarely go to Google anymore. I go to my AI chat assistant of choice and I ask a question and I get an answer. And that has saved me lots of time. And sometimes I don't get the right answer. You have to use AI responsibly, of course. But I started thinking about, well, what is that going to mean for knowledge-based organizations? And what I mean by that are organizations that thrive on generating and collecting content that they deliver to their members or their customers through websites. And that kind of dawned on me because I started my career building websites for newspapers who are also, information-based, maybe more than knowledge, but information-based websites. And that paradigm shifted really rapidly once Google came along and started indexing all that content, and Facebook. So to me, it had a familiar feeling, and I started sort of digging into what that might mean for us. So why does that change matter? The first thing is that if you're a knowledge-based organization, you depend on human visits to your websites to generate revenue, right? You're not really making money from bots and AI spiders and agents coming to your website. When humans come, you're delivering member value to them or customer value through the content that you're offering there on your website. You are also potentially generating revenue through e-commerce activities. You can't sell something to somebody if they're not aware of it, if they're not on your website to do that transaction. You may also have advertising, either advertising something that you're selling, like a event that you're putting on, or a course that you're trying to sell, or it may be advertising for your exhibitors or for your sponsors. But those advertisements don't get clicks and they don't get eyeballs unless somebody comes to your website to see them. And you might also be selling access to content. Maybe there's a knowledge base, or maybe you're using a learning management system where you're delivering educational content to people. And again, those require people to click into your website to see that they exist to find them. So what is happening now is that content is more and more being delivered through AI chat bots and through like ChatGPT and Perplexity and other chat instances. And the way they get those your content to deliver to answer those questions is through bots. So automated requests that go to your website and other websites and scrape all that content and add it into their LLMs, their large language models that answer those questions. And bots have started to overtake human traffic on the internet. Impervia, which is an organization, Imperva, that is a vendor that sells software to help prevent bots from happening. So they're a little bit biased here, but in their 2025 report, they reported that they are seeing a majority of all traffic is coming from bots. And I've seen that in our traffic here as well, which I'll get into in a second. So I believe that that's true. And all those bots are doing things, whether they're good bots or bad bots, we'll get into that, but many of them are AI bots, which are taking that content and redelivering it through another venue, and that venue is monetizing that content. So the reason that I believe that fact is true is that, probably starting about last year, we started to see a lot of spikes in traffic and unusual traffic behavior, just slowly growing, but eventually starting to impact some of our systems. And so we have a lot of different products here, I guess 3 main products. And one of them is our EventScribe product, which is delivers software for managing live events, whether that's badge printing or registration or your online schedule or abstract collection. That's what it does. And eventscribe.net is the website front end of that. And so what we're looking at here is a graphic of traffic coming to the eventscribe.net website over a period of a month. And you can see here that the traffic is bucketed into various different areas, whether that's automated traffic, likely automated, it's not always easy to tell, likely human, or verified bots. So it's a little tricky because not every bot is going to tell you they're bots. Some of them try and hide it for malicious purposes. And some automated traffic isn't necessarily a bot either. It might be an API call. But what we're seeing here is slightly less than 50% of the traffic is coming from bots. A little bit majority here was human on this one. But when we went over to the learning management system, we saw a pretty dramatic difference in terms of the number of bot visits, where we had, out of 226 million visits in this month period or 30-day period, only 73 million were humans. So the rest of that, almost half of it was coming from verified bots and or automated or likely automated traffic. So you can see here that, lots of bots were coming into the websites that we're hosting for our customers. And this was not always the case. Bots have always been around. Google has always indexed websites, and hackers have always tried to use bots to get into your site. But the growth really has been pretty dramatic over the past year. So I mentioned there's lots of different kinds of bots, specifically around AI bot activity. If we look at all the different bots and requests that we're seeing from AI, you can see here OpenAI has 3 different kinds of bots that are coming in, and Anthropic and Claude and Perplexity I mentioned. I use Perplexity a lot. I recommend, if you haven't, give that a try. None of these bots existed a few years ago, right? So these are all net new sources of traffic that are scraping content and using it for their own purposes. And what we've seen here is they're not really friendly. I guess bots aren't friendly, but a lot of traditional bots like Google tended to behave in ways that were a little bit more predictable and a little bit less intense and spiky. And by spiky, what I mean is you can see how these bots, some days they're just not visiting at all, and then the next days they're really hammering. And this particular thread here, I've taken out the OpenAI bots just so I can show you this. But then when I move to with OpenAI, you can see the scale that OpenAI has been hammering the web properties we have. It dwarfs those peaks that we were just looking at. And as I said, super spiky, not at all very friendly. If you're responsible for the infrastructure of hosting, like I am, this means that you have to be ready for what we call a thundering horde of traffic to come along, and you can't let that take down your site, and you have to be able to support that. So these are the kind of things that started getting our attention as they started growing more and more over the past year. Another piece of information that I found interesting is what these AI bots were interested in versus other bots. So indexers like Google or malicious bots, they're just trying everything. They don't seem to really care. They want to index everything. They want to find every possible door that they could get in, and Google wants to index everything. The AI bots seemed to be, for our cases anyway, a little bit more targeted, and they were really interested in the content that we had. And so this chart is a breakdown of the number of different requests that we were getting and the top pages that they were targeting. And this is again over a period of a month. And you can see here, course catalog, course catalog, course catalog, course catalog. So 4 out of the top 5 were all course catalog requests. The AI bots are very interested in scanning the pages that have content and that link to content so that they can find that content to index. So what is the impact of this on us and on the knowledge-based organizations that are delivering their content via the web? So from that Imperva report, I found this quote, which, it hit home for me. I don't know if it will for you, but if you don't control your web traffic, somebody else will. And it's really not just somebody else, it's a bunch of other entities will, including those AI bots. And that not being able to control that web traffic has some pretty specific and dramatic impacts on the hosting environment. So as I mentioned, they don't behave like polite users. They might just hammer you 1 second and stop the next. And that can have a performance impact on the websites. It can slow down your site if you're not prepared for that amount of traffic. And if you're running an e-commerce operation on your website and you know anything about marketing and conversions in e-commerce, a slow site means slower conversions. You will lose that revenue if people click away because they're frustrated because the page isn't loading as fast as they would like. There's also a pretty impactful cost at the bottom end. So in addition to potentially lost revenue, the hosting costs of all that bandwidth that you have to pay for those bots, the servers that have to spin up to support those big spikes, databases have to use more database computation costs to run, and firewalls have to stop that traffic. We've also seen it skewing the web analytics. So depending upon how you set up your web analytic traffic and how sophisticated you are in being able to filter out that traffic, it starts to make your campaigns look more or less successful, keeping in mind that some of those bots don't always identify themselves as bots, and they can really appear to be human. So all that traffic creates a lot of problems, whether it's marketing or revenue or your hosting costs. And then there's the reduction. Once that content has been taken into those large language models and people are using those, there's this reduction in organic search traffic. And what I mean by organic search traffic is when all that work that you've done to make your content findable, so people organically search for it. It's not a paid click. When they're not coming in and finding that through organic search anymore, that has an impact. Now, AI change, as I mentioned before, AI changes how the users might find an answer, and that results in these fewer clicks to the original sources, which might be your learning management system, your online event, your knowledge base, your member-based website. And that is requiring us to change how we think about search engine optimization, because if your members or your customers are no longer searching in Google and clicking on that first top 3 links, or maybe if you're lucky, they'll click on a few more if you're not on the top few. The focus now has got to be on getting your content into the large language models in a way that protects your proprietary content, but brings them to your website so they can still find it. Here at Cadmium, this is something that our marketing team is working on. I'm not an SEO expert, and this is changing so rapidly that I don't know that anybody really knows what's going to happen, but there's a tension between getting your content and making it available to be indexed, but also still finding a way to get viewers to come to your site. So do you rewrite your content using questions and answers that would then appear in the response from the AI chat bot or chat agent, and then maybe your customers will look for the resource, or if they see your name there, click over or search for your website to get there to do whatever it is that you want them to do, buy a membership or take a course. And of course, if they don't get there, that's a lost engagement opportunity for you to interact with your members and your customers. So what this means is we have to start thinking about how we're going to change our web properties and how we interact with our members and our customers to deal with this. And, I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't think anybody does yet, but I think we are in the midst of a change in behavior, and we need to be aware of it and start thinking and planning for it. So if you don't believe me, I've got some more resources here that I want to show you that kind of hint at what's happening with how traffic is changing. This is from a report called GWI Core. It does not include any data from China, so this is international data. And in the agenda here, you have the percentage of internet viewers who have visited Wikipedia in the past month. So, about a third starting 2020, and it's gone down a little bit in the past 4 years. But what's remarkable is this is ChatGPT in the black, and just starting in 2023, they pretty much doubled the number of internet users who have visited their website. And so I'm certain that that's going to continue to go up. And every one of those people that is visiting ChatGPT and getting an answer from it is going to realize, hey, that just saved me a few minutes. That was really convenient. I'm not going to go and click through all those resources again. Now, people are skeptical. AI delivers wrong answers all the time. And I've talked to lots of people, here at Cadmium in terms of how they use AI, and lots of people, call it junk, and it returns, it hallucinates, and that's all true. You have to use it with care, but that doesn't mean that it's not effective and it's not going to get better. And as people learn how to use it, they're going to use it more. One of the things I've observed is people are skeptical and they want to see it fail, and it's easy to do that. But if you want to see it succeed, it's a little bit harder to do that, but it does pay dividends. And I think once people learn how to use it, we'll see adoption go up. I'm old enough to remember like when email came out and when word processing and Word came out. And those are all tools that we kind of struggled with to learn at first, but now, we can't imagine going back or living without them. And I think that's what's going to happen here. There's going to be a little bit of friction, and once people get over that, adoption will continue. This data is from a group called SimilarWeb 2025 report, and they're tracking search traffic. And I'm not going to claim to be able to explain everything that's happening here, but I think there's a couple things I wanted to call out, which is Google here has not seen a huge amount of change in this time period, going back to December of last year. They're losing a little bit of traffic, but not a tremendous amount. Bing, on the other hand, after seeing some growth, and Yahoo both saw really dramatic drops in traffic happening in the past couple of months that they've seen here. And my theory for this is that Google has injected their AI chatbot, Gemini, into the top of the search results. Yahoo and Bing have not. They have Bing has Copilot, which is a Microsoft product, and they deliver that through a separate web page. And this drop off here, I think, reflects some of what my theory is that people are less likely to continue to use these old style search engine and more likely to use AI responses. And so here's what I mean by that. This is, I did a search last week across a couple of different uh, web properties. On the left, we have Bing and Yahoo, and I asked it to help me find the best professional association offering CE credit for nurses, right? So that's probably not as specific as a nurse seeking CE credits might do, but if they're searching, I'm going to use that because it's pretty generic. And what you can see here is this is just a list of websites, right? It's now up to you to go and figure out which is the best. And what's interesting here is that there's a group, RxCE, which is actually pharmacy education. And they've been so effective at search engine optimization that they've gotten to the top of the list for these terms. It's probably CE credits. But it's not relevant to me because I'm searching for nursing credit. And so this is sort of how they've gamed the system in a way that hurts end users, right? Like it's not nearly as effective. Hurts is the wrong word, but it's not nearly as effective for me as an end user as if I go over to Perplexity or I go over to Copilot or ChatGPT and I ask that question, and I'm getting really specific responses to my question, where I'm getting links to organizations that I can click on to go over to based on the response that I've gotten. And I can't, me personally, I can't imagine going back to this old way because this new way is so much more efficient for me and it's delivering more relevant content. Whether it's not accurate or not, you can argue that. And certainly I've gotten inaccurate content, but most of the time in my field anyway, in information technology today, it works really well. If you're in the humanities, probably totally different story, but I can get really specific answers really quickly. So what I see happening is these guys are probably losing traffic, at least partially because of the quality of the response that they are delivering is not as strong as the AI chat agents. So I was also curious about whether or not this was just a consumer phenomenon. I think in many cases, consumers lead technology adoption. They don't have to go get a permission to use it, and they have to do with compliance and governance, and they don't have to get purchase approved. So I did some searching on that, and I found this report from RAMP AI Index. And RAMP is a company that processes payments, and so they have some insight into how organizations are spending their money. And so what this is a report of how many US businesses have paid subscriptions to AI models, platforms, and tools. And so they're showing that 40% of US businesses are paying for some kind of AI tool. It's a really dramatic increase in just since January, in the first quarter of the year, and that's gone up dramatically. And when they break it down by type of business, the vertical you're in, healthcare, of course, is lagging. It's more conservative than a lot of other businesses are, but still 25%. So that means that, if you're a healthcare-based organization, knowledge-based organization, member association, and you're serving healthcare, one in four of those companies that your members or customers work for might be paying for them to use an AI tool. So they might be using it at home, for their personal use. They have good chance that they're probably using it as well at work, and will continue to do so as it grows more successful. So we talked about why this matters. Again, to reiterate, it's lost traffic for your web property. It's less opportunity for you to present your organization's value to your members, your customers. It's higher cost for your hosting, your infrastructure, your security. That's creating pressure on your organization, reducing the opportunities you have to do other things with that budget. And there's a potential loss of intellectual property control as your content is being absorbed into the LLMs. And those AI contents are monetizing your content, right? That's kind of frustrating. And New York Times, for example, is suing OpenAI for doing just that. And I know there's a lot of activity happening around copyright law, so it's unclear how all this is going to play out, but it's clear that there is going to be an impact, and so I want to talk about that. But first, I want to take a little detour to talk about security. I know that was one of the topics here, and AI certainly comes into play as well. We're seeing an emergence of AI-powered attacks, or I should say, the industry is seeing them. I haven't seen these firsthand yet, but they are out there. One of the things that's happening is because AI is really good, especially at technology and at code and at things that are very specific. You can use them to execute complex attacks in a way that that you might not have been able to before without lots of experience or skill. So KnowBe4, which is a security training awareness company, we use them here at Cadmium. They've done a number of studies. They've seen a slight rise, I guess, from 40% in 2023 to today in AI-based bot attacks. I think that this is probably going to grow pretty rapidly once as adoption continues. The other thing that I'm most concerned about here in terms of my security responsibility is how good AI is at generating phishing content. So I'm sure you all have seen plenty of phishing emails where it's like really easy to tell that it's phishing. The person who wrote it, clearly wasn't on anybody's marketing team. Maybe they weren't an native English speaker. Whoever made that logo just didn't know how to make it look right. But AI knows how to do all those things really, really well. And it is just dead simple to create an email that looks just like it came from your bank or your hospital without any kind of expertise, really. And so KnowBe4 does these studies of phishing tests. So we use them to test our employees to see whether they can recognize a phishing attack. And they've now seen that AI-based phishing emails are 25% more effective in getting past people's defenses than human-created phishing emails. So this is particularly concerning to me because it's just getting much harder and harder to identify phishing emails. And then the last one I wanted to mention here is agentic AI. So agentic AI, agentic means that it's more than just generative. It's not just AI that's going to create text for you or create an image. It's actually going to do things, right? Like it might go out to a website and execute a script, or it might move files on your computer. And those can be done for good. Like agentic AI can do things like, hey, find me this file that I don't remember the name of, or go submit this web form, test on the software that I'm developing. So agentic AI isn't necessarily bad, but of course, in the hands of malicious users, it can absolutely be bad. And agentic AI can be used to orchestrate attacks where you think of it like building a house, for example, or maybe you're renovating an apartment. You might call a general contractor and they will bring in a painter and a plumber and an electrician. And each one of those professions will be really good at one thing. And agentic AI can bring together different kinds of AI bots and different kinds of AI agents that can then be strung together to be really effective in executing, or potentially really effective in executing security attacks against an organization. So imagine you had one AI that was good at collecting the names of employees that might work for an organization. Searches the web, finds everybody associated with Cadmium. And another one that goes out to all those people's names, LinkedIn's and their Facebooks, and collects information about them, and then passes that on to another agent that generates phishing emails based upon that information that they know. So that's the kind of stringing of AI agents that the industry is starting to expect to see from malicious users. And this one's a little bit scary, to be honest, but the flip side of this, of course, the good guys, the blue teams are also doing the same in terms of protecting security assets. So why does the security change matter to organizations? Obviously, there's an increased risk. A security breach can be pretty expensive. You've got cyber insurance, you've got liability costs that may come out of this. And those tools that I mentioned before probably going to cost us more. So all this is changing how we're going to have to think about security of an organization as well. So, okay, that's all kind of scary. A lot of stuff is changing. So what do we want to do from a response standpoint? So some of it's fairly easy, and I'm sure most of you watching, your organization's already doing this. And if they're not, so certainly you can go ask them about some of these things that I'm talking about here. But what I found when we started seeing all that traffic, it was really important to understand what it is first. So, for a while we're kind of scratching our heads, thinking, well, why is Eric so busy all the time? And did somebody launch a really popular e-learning course? But we started looking at those reports and digging into those logs regularly, looking for the traffic patterns, and then just becoming familiar with all the different kinds of automated traffic. So I talked about AI bots and search engine bots. There's also lots of other kinds of bots that are out there hitting your website for search engine optimization or for marketing. Bots that are checking the prices of things. So there's all different kinds of bots out there. And as I mentioned before, you can't just turn it all off, right? You need bots to help people find your website, but you have to understand kind of how to thread the needle to allow the ones in you want and keep out the ones you don't. And most organizations have API endpoints, so how you might allow other entities to interact with your websites and your content, your databases, but not through the website, the HTML pages, but through APIs. So you can't block that traffic. There's lots of scanners out there that are looking for security vulnerabilities. They can be good and bad as well. So you might hire a vulnerability scanner to come in and look at your website and tell you, hey, you need to go fix this thing. So you want to allow those through. So understanding what that traffic is the first part of controlling it, because you can't just turn it all off. Once you have that understanding, continuing to review the reports and logs, and then implementing rules to either rate limit or block it, depending upon what kind of traffic it is. It's also important to look for what we call expensive endpoints, and I mean computationally expensive. So there might be a catalog page that you have that needs to make a trip to the database every time to get the freshest content. And that database trip, that's extra cost of your hosting company charges you for each one of those trips versus a static page that doesn't change. That's a much less expensive resource. So those expensive ones you need to, protect so that they're not just getting hammered by bots. And then this is an ongoing process. Like the traffic patterns, they might change day to day, but on a weekly basis, going in and reviewing these, and certainly on a monthly basis to understand what the new bots out there, what new kind of rules you might have to set up to protect your web assets. Here's an example of one of those. I mentioned earlier the course catalog. So we've set up a rule here, and this is just a snippet from the rule where anybody who's coming in and making a request for anything with course catalog in it, if they're a known bot, they're going to be rate limited. And so by known bot, it's a bot that's polite enough to say, hey, I'm ChatGPT, I'm OpenAI, I'm Google. I'm going to come in and search your website. And not all the bots do. Some of them will try and hide as real traffic. So if the ones that are polite enough, these are really easy to rate limit. So if a learner is looking at our catalog, we know that they're probably loading the page, reading, maybe clicking, going to the next page, reading, maybe clicking. But bots are just click, 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 click. And if we see that happen in your known bot, we will return a 429 response code, which says, hey, you're being rate limited. And the known bots, they respect that and they slow down and they'll get your content at a pace that's more acceptable. The malicious ones will just get blocked because maybe they're going to slow down. And humans won't get stopped at all because, A, they're not clicking that fast, and B, they're not known bots. So one of the reasons why you have to keep looking at your traffic is to understand who those known bots are and who the visitors are and what patterns they're hitting so you can control them. On the security side, adapting your security training to include awareness of AI. So because generative AI is getting so good, it's not just things like phishing emails, it's also voice. So I'm presenting to you all right now. My image is on the internet, my voice is on the internet. A malicious actor could record this, make generative AI of my voice, calling my CFO and saying, "Hey, can you pay this invoice I'm about to send over to you?" And it off it goes to some bank account in North Korea or wherever. So think of ways that you can adopt to not just training people to be aware of it, but thinking about how they might react to sensitive requests. If it's urgent, obviously slow down, or like, hey, you know what? I'll call you back, or I'll Zoom you so we can talk in real time, or maybe we have a safe word to release sensitive information that has to be shared between executives or other people who need to. Reevaluate your risk assessments to consider AI. I don't know that this has popped up. We do annual risk assessments here. I don't know this has popped up on everybody's risk assessment yet, but the technology is changing quickly enough that we need to stop and think about all the things that are potentially bad that are going to happen from AI, whether those are external actors or internal actors. That's got to be something that we thoughtfully and intentionally consider as part of a risk assessment. And then security tooling, as I mentioned, the bad guys are using it. We need to make sure that the vendors that we're using to protect our assets are using it as well. On the strategy side, I think it's a little bit harder. This what I just talked about is kind of low-hanging fruit if you have the tools in place. The strategy side takes a little bit more planning and moving to execute. So I have the background in product, from Ethos CE and thinking about product all the time. And I started thinking about this as how I might think about this in terms of product strategy and the stack of tools that I'm going to use if I were a knowledge-based organization. So the first is, we have domain expertise. We're experts in whatever that is. We're probably known for it, and we need to consider that as part of the stack of tools that we're going to use to adopt to AI, this AI world. So having a basis of curated, authoritative, human-reviewed knowledge assets that were generated by trusted resources, that value is not going to go away. If anything, it's going to become, I think, more valuable as generative AI relies on it to generate AI responses. Building structured content systems. So it's not just enough to have all that knowledge and that data and just throw it somewhere. In order to be able to use it, it needs to be cataloged and tagged and indexed into knowledge bases and into databases so that we can use it as part of an AI-centric product strategy. Obviously, if you don't already have this done, it's gonna take a long time. But there's no better time than the present to start doing this, because the value of having tagged and accessible content is going to increase. And I can tell you, as somebody who's gone through transformations of data that take years, it's overwhelming at first, but slow, steady progress just pays benefits once you have it done. Once you have it done, then you can start thinking about things like building internal APIs. So how you can build content in this content into a structured service that you can use internally for chatbots, for search tools, and make that available for your staff and your employees, and then externally as well. So building APIs that have public endpoints with usage rules, access controls that you can then use to monetize in terms of your own AI chatbots and your own AI-based products. Because remember, my assumption here is that consumers, their behavior is changing, and they're no longer going to be clicking through everything on Google. But when they get to your website, they're not going to want to click through all your content. They're going to want to use similar tools that you can then, monetize. Now, whether that's monetized as part of member value or part of a online course, that remains to be seen. But without having those there, you're going to have a challenge competing with others that do. And then thinking about in the future, is it possible once we have all that domain expertise, it's been structured, it's been tagged, and we have it available in API, you know, what then can we do with that in terms of other organizations who want access to that? Can an AI assistant then be sold to other organizations that might want to use it? So, for example, if you have deep knowledge in patient safety, can a patient safety bot could be something that other organizations might want to buy from you. So that's a kind of a longer term goal, and it remains to be seen for me what that would look like. But I think that that is a kind of an obvious endpoint for the work that you might be doing anyway, both internally and externally. Organizationally, this is something that we've been working on here at Cadmium and thinking about, because it's a pretty big change that's happening really quickly, and we want to make sure that the organization is ready for it. So it starts with leadership, I think, and the governance around that. It means that we need to have strategic AI plan ownership at the top. So what I've seen is there are lots of people that are using AI and they're using it effectively, but in order to be really effective at it, we have to have some control around it. We have to have governance around it. We need budget for that. We need to define policies. And to be really effective, we have to work across departments. And that means that the leadership of an organization needs to be aligned on what the strategy is for how we're going to use these new tools. Capability and infrastructure, obviously, I talked a lot about this in just the last few slides. We have to start thinking about how we're going to do all that. And it requires provisioning new things that we haven't done before, like LLM, large language model token budgeting. Like, how much money are we going to spend on LLMs, and which LLM are we going to use, and how are we going to control how those tokens are used and who gets to use them? Which tools are we going to use? And trying to figure out which chat assistant is the best one for my organization, it's not the easiest thing to do because it's all developing so rapidly. So we have to kind of think about this in a way that allows us to be ready to make those decisions and to move quickly when they're not the right decisions. There's also a lot of tools developing that maybe you're not thinking about yet. I'll tell you one that's really impacted me at work is AI voice assistant. So I don't really type to my computer much anymore because I can talk to it. And unlike Siri, which just repeats what I say exactly, AI voice assistants take what I say and understand the context for it, and they take out the oh no, wait, I meant this. And it really saves me a tremendous amount of time typing. That's something I pay for out of my own pocket because it makes me so much more effective. But at some point, that's going to be something that I probably will push for across the organization. That, like, hey, if we can spend 10% less time, more typing, think of how much more time we'll be able to spend solving customer problems rather than low value moving of our fingers. So, that's just an example of the kind of tool that we want to be able to take advantage of when it's ready for moving across the organization. And then, a lot of these tools, we need to figure out how we're going to implement identity, authentication, and authorization. If I build an internal API, how do I make sure that the data that it is delivering to people is delivered to the right people, and the data is, they're only saying things they have authorization for. Lastly, team culture and readiness. There are, I mentioned before, there's a lot of AI skeptics out there, and rightfully so. Just like any technology, I've seen some really awful examples of AI, and that tends to turn people off. And people that don't want to spend any time with it, it makes a really easy excuse, and it's hard to argue with that. So what we're trying to do, and what I encourage you all to think about if you want to accelerate the use of AI in your organization, is finding change leaders, not just IT managers who deliver the tool or know how to use the tool, but people who can work around those objections and think, again, I think about it like a product, which is, what is the discovery process of how these tools can help this department succeed? Because it's going to be different for every department. We need specific kinds of training programs. It looks much different to train developers on how to use coding assistants than it does to train, other operations departments to use chat assistants. And so just working on the progress towards building AI fluency. Just like any technology, it's new, and people will need to learn to become fluent in it. So takeaways: continue to develop and protect your knowledge assets. That's the key thing here. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you're a knowledge-based organization, and this is hitting home with you. But the strength that you have is this content and knowledge that you have and your organization has built. So I think absolutely double down on that. Prepare your organization for this AI disruption. It's happening. I'm seeing it happen, and I don't know where it's going to go, but put in place the framework to adapt quickly. And think about your content delivery and adapting that for the changing consumer expectations. Again, people are no longer, or at least I'm, and many people are no longer clicking through to all the websites. They're using generative AI summaries to save time and to find answers more quickly. And then, deliver that, take all that and deliver as a trusted experience. Be cautious about damaging your brand by not doing this in the right way. And that is all I have for today. I hope it was all interesting and helpful for you. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Ezra. That was great. I'm amazed at my mind's kind of all over the place. So I'm curious to see what our questions are. There's so much to think about, and I really appreciate your time today, just presenting what you know and what it is that, gosh, you spend some time really digging into. So thank you. And I know you probably just scratched the surface. I want to thank everyone who has submitted a question. And if you haven't and you have a question, let us know. Comments are also welcome. Use the chat function and I'll get those. I do have a couple just to kick us off here with Ezra. And we've got a little bit of time, so we can take a few. One person asked about the role of cloud services and decentralized storage in terms of security and optimizing access to larger databases. Do you have any take on what that role might be?
Decentralized storage. So, I'm not sure I understand the context for that, but certainly in order to be able to use that data, it will have to be connected. And so as somebody who is part of an organization that has decentralized storage, it is something that we're working on here. So Cadmium was a bunch of different companies that were brought together to try and deliver the value that we can across these products. And so all those products that came separately have storage in different locations, and connecting that is somewhat of a challenge. So we've managed to do that using, in some cases, VPNs across different cloud providers. We really focusing on API first, and probably talked about that. But instead of allowing a resource one to directly interact with data that's stored in another database, we want to have a API in front of that database so that it's much easier to access. It's not, hey, I need access into your VPN into your network, or I need to have an IP in your VPC. I can just make HTTP calls, across an encrypted connection to connect data. Not sure if that was the source of the question, but it is one of the problems we're solving here. And then thinking about pulling out the relevant data, putting it into denormalized databases where it can be more easily tagged and classified, and then just accessed in one place. So lots of ETL activities happening here that we think are going to contribute to AI in the future.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. Got another question here. Do you have any advice for evaluating the trade-off between using AI for content management versus the potential security risks? And I think you may have touched on this a little bit, but any kind of wisdom for which is it? Is it better to or better or not?
Yeah, so this is really interesting because it is, I was shocked when I went out as a as a leader of the IT organization here, trying to find sort of enterprise level AI solutions, because it's pretty easy in a lot of other areas. Like if you want to, like let's say you need office tools, you can go to Microsoft, or you can go to Google, or there's and the tools that they provide, or identity management, OAuth, uh, or Auth One. There's lots of enterprise level tools that have all these features that you expect right out of the box. And AI isn't like that yet. Some of them are better than others, but things like having controls and governance to protect your content, it's kind of like the base level, right? Like we can't roll out something to our employees if we can't be assured that the content is going to be, there's security standards we have to live up to. There's PII that we have to protect from going into an agent. We have to make sure that the organizations have SOC 2 compliance, and so there's all these enterprise level controls, SSO. So those, they're not there yet. Like, so I was kind of shocked to find that, and to think about how we're going to protect the privacy of our content. Some of it relies on those providers, and they are moving quickly. And I can tell you that if you're a large organization, you're going to have a lot more success talking to an open AI than an organization like Cadmium is. They're looking for big deals right now, and they want to talk to large organizations. I'm sure they're growing and adding features rapidly. Smaller organizations, it's a little bit harder, and so we've had to be, here at Cadmium anyway, we've had to be much more nuanced, I guess, in where we can roll out enterprise level AI tools. And where right now I've seen some of that exist is around the coding assistants. Those assistants are built into products that already existed and had a lot of enterprise AI controls around things like privacy and security. So they're much easier and faster. Where it's been more challenging is around sort of enterprise level chat agents and chat bots. And some of the new companies I have seen do specialize in this as well. It just requires a lot more work because there's so many and they're moving so quickly. And you don't want to tie your cart to the horse that might go out of business. So it's a lot more challenging. Not sure if that answers that question, but there's not a great answer right now, other than do your homework.
Right. Hey, at the end of the day, I guess that's kind of the bottom line, right? This is not something we can jump into without digging first.
Yeah, be cautious.
Especially with how many, like you just said, how many new organizations, new startups that, like, gosh, I feel like every day I'm like, what do I look for again? Which one did I use yesterday? All right, I have another good question here for you, and this might be our last. We'll see, based on time. How effective are robots.txt files? And have you seen AI crawlers not respect those?
So that's a good question. They should be effective, right? But it depends upon the crawler to respect them. So my understanding is that the crawlers like Google and Bing will respect them. Many of the other crawlers doing things like search engine marketing and price crawlers and so forth should respect them, as well as like the well-known AI bots. And one of the things I didn't present this, but one of the some of the data that I got, Cloudflare issues. Cloudflare is a provider of services to help manage traffic. We use them here at Cadmium, and they have a report every year. It's got lots of great data in it. If you're interested, just go to their website and search for it. But they do report on the targeting of search engines in robots.txt files. And you'll see in the report that they've shown lots of the new AI bots are specifically being targeted in robots.txt files. That being said, there are malicious bots that are not going to follow them, and my challenge as the responsible for the infrastructure here is, we allow our customers to handle robots.txt because they need to own that as part of the product, and for various reasons they might want to block things, and those aren't things that we would have any knowledge or control of. So we can't, I can't use those as a tool. So I don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge of the effectiveness of those for that reason. And we're using web application firewalls to block and we're basically, again, we can't block AI bots, and we can't block search bots because that would be damaging to our customers, but we can control the traffic and slow them down. And so that's what we've done. And for that reason, I just don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge, but it, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll take one more easy one and then we'll wrap up. What is the name of the voice assistant that you mentioned for day-to-day operations?
It's called Whisperflow, WISPR. It's I basically you push the function key and I just start talking to it, and it listens, and then it puts the text that you've spoken into wherever you want. Yeah, I guess that's a recommendation. I'll recommend it. I'll say it's been very effective for me. But like any AI tool, you have to use it cautiously. And obviously don't put any PII or anything like that into it, and make sure you have it, turned on in a way that you know when it's on and off. So
I imagine that's key.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to leave it on. Go have some private conversations.
Right. Well, with that, Ezra, I want to say thank you just for sharing your expertise and all of the work that you do in this area and knowledge that you have. We really appreciate you presenting today. And I also want to thank everyone who joined us and everyone who submitted a question. Thank you for engaging with us and being with us here. All right. So with that, from all of us here at Cadmium, I want to say take care and stay safe, and we appreciate it. We'll see you again soon.